No child left behind. Surely you've heard this by now. It's not just a catchy slogan, it's a set of guidelines for our public schools, handed down from the federal government to the states. The mandate has its share of controversy, but one thing is for certain. This well-crafted catchphrase was meant to convey the idea that America cares about educating every child. It's not no American child left behind or no English-speaking child left behind. It says no child left behind. If we're truly committed to educating every child, we have to include the thousands of children of undocumented workers and illegal immigrants who currently live in our state. Should these children be allowed in our public schools? The U.S. Supreme Court said they should in its 1982 decision, Plyer versus Doe. It is difficult to conceive of a rational justification for penalizing these children for their presence within the United States, yet that appears to be precisely the effect. By denying these children a basic education, we deny them the ability to live within the structure of our civic institutions, and foreclose any realistic possibility that they will contribute in even the smallest way to the progress of our nation. Still, a number of anti-immigration groups are threatening to challenge this decision. These groups play on the fears that increased immigration leads to terrorism and drug smuggling.
All these groups are highly mobilized, are well-funded, and have these arguments that at a certain level appeal to people who aren't familiar with immigrants.
Kansas City Attorney Ramon Murguia is former chair of the National Council of La Raza, the largest Hispanic advocacy group in the nation.
I think as a result of September 11th and the events of that day, there's a lot of people in this country and in this state who are taking positions that are not very well thought through. They're reacting in a very knee-jerk fashion to the fact that there are immigrants in this country who aren't documented.
Most of these groups are based in California and Texas, but they're making their mark right here in Kansas too. Meet Connie Morris. She has no prior school administrative experience and no prior experience in elected office, yet she defeated Kansas Board of Education incumbent Sonny Rundell rather handily for the 5th District seat last November. Rundell had served on the board for more than 14 years. Now one of 10 members on our State Board of Education, Morris ran on a platform of removing all children of illegal immigrants from public schools. As for children of legal immigrants who couldn't yet speak English, create a one-year English immersion program, she said, and if kids can't speak English after 1 year, they too should be kicked out of school.
But I was very disappointed that people who call themselves Western Kansas people would have an attitude like that.
Morris and her supporters contradict themselves by arguing that these people are either freeloaders or that they're coming here to take away American jobs. The truth is, they're only taking the jobs most of us would never want, in the feedlots and the meatpacking plants, and they're doing it for pay none of us would tolerate. Juan has worked on feedlots and farms in America for more than 16 years.
Todos los trabajadores mexicanos, guatemaltecos, todo extranjero, es muy importante trabajar aquí porque son los que trabajan más y ganan poco, les pagan cualquier miseria porque 10, 11 horas. Cualquier persona no trabaja muchas horas, 8 y vámonos para la casa. Y ellos están expuestos a que si tienen que trabajar 13, 14 horas, órale, no le hace. Para ellos para eso vienen a este país, para trabajar.
When we began our dairies, right off the bat, we did not have the population enough to staff the dairies. And we had to have people come in, and it was the migrant population that we could bring in. And the second thing was that they were a younger population. They had the physical stamina to be able to work like this and work steady like this.
Morris's argument fails to acknowledge that removing undocumented workers would have a devastating impact on the state economy. Industries, from agriculture to construction, have come to depend on the cheap wages, hard work, and low prices that result from using these workers. And as for claiming that they don't pay taxes, she's wrong about that too. Donald Stull, professor of anthropology at the University of Kansas, has studied race relations in Garden City since the 1980s.
The illegal immigrants are also paying taxes. They're paying property taxes, they're paying payroll taxes, they're paying all those taxes. But they're not drawing down on the kinds of returns on those taxes that citizens may. They're not taking advantage of things like Social Security or welfare payments. They're not doing that because they're here illegally and they can't, or because they're often afraid to take advantage of services that they are entitled to.
Morris made headlines soon after taking office when she wrongly accused Garden City Mayor Tim Cruz of being an illegal immigrant. She did this on an anti-immigration email discussion group that was circulated all over the nation. It was like McCarthyism had started all over again.
We had a conversation on the phone, and I talked about the importance of education for all kids, and that I didn't understand her stance. She felt that kids can learn Spanish in a year, and I told her that I'd been trying to learn Spanish for almost 8 years now and still not fluent. And she told me, well, kids were easy to learn. And so even with that statement, I don't know how she picked up that I was an illegal. Well, it really bothered me, not only because it was about me, but it was hurtful to my mom. You know, my parents worked very hard so that I could have an education and be successful in life. And, you know, to have someone sending emails nationwide, it really bothered me. And then it started circling around our local community, and that really started to bother me when it started hitting home, I guess. You know, she had just got elected to the state school board, and you know, when you're in public office, you really need to do your homework and make sure that the comments you're making out in public and in private, that they're true comments. And she obviously didn't do that, or she would have known better to make that type of comment.
We wanted to give Morris every opportunity to explain and defend her views in this film. Over the course of 6 months, she repeatedly declined our requests to be interviewed on camera. There was, however, one place this public official could not avoid us: the public meeting of the Kansas Board of Education. We arrived at the meeting early, in the hopes of getting a few minutes of Miss Morris's time. We waited, and waited, and waited. Finally, she arrived 5 minutes before the meeting was scheduled to start. Miss Morris, hi. Have you changed your stance on educating children of illegal immigrants?
Excuse me, I have to get to a meeting.
Do you think President Bush had it wrong that it should be some children left behind?
I really need to get ready for a meeting.
You still have a few minutes.
I need to get ready.
I took advantage of the Citizens Open Forum to ad-lib a few comments and let the board know how I felt on this issue.
I know the vast majority of the board is very well informed on this issue, but at least one member has campaigned on a platform of what I feel has been half-truths and in some cases blatant lies. Do not punish these innocent children for actions that their parents have made. We need to follow the 1982 Supreme Court decision. This controversy has brought shame and embarrassment to the board and to our state. I hope the reasonable members of the board will work to inform all of its members. I would welcome any comments from the board, and I encourage you to please look into this and make sure that no child is left behind in Kansas. Thank you.
The State Board Citizens Open Forum is now closed at 10:52. We'd like to thank our speakers for sharing their views with the board, and the State Board will determine if any of the issues presented should be addressed as an agenda item at a future meeting.
At the break that followed, Morris refused to talk to us. Again, we waited patiently. Ms. Morris, do you have any comments on my statement?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Why do you feel that you have no need to address an issue that you brought to the public's attention?
Your meeting's now in session, and you need to sit down.
She refuses to comment on the very issue she brought to our attention. But it's perfectly clear that she knows how damaging this policy would be. How did a candidate with such misguided and uninformed views win a seat on our State Board of Education? Tireless campaigning, the uphill battle her opponent faced as a write-in candidate, and low voter turnout all helped her cause.
And a lot of her support was from out of state. We weren't aware of her attitude or her feelings toward the migrant population until after the primary.
With the Republican primary over, it looked like smooth sailing for Morris. There was no Democratic candidate to challenge her. Rundell, with the backing of teachers, editorial writers, and minority activists throughout the state, waged a valiant write-in campaign. But voter turnout was low, and when the final votes were tallied, Morris won by a landslide. Kansas Board of Education member Carol Roop.
It takes somebody really knowledgeable on voting issues in order to know to write somebody's name in. When you see only one name on the ballot, I think that's the one you just automatically check. So really what's surprising is that he got thousands and thousands of write-in votes. That's hard to do, but it wasn't enough. It was too little too late, and I wish that had happened in the primary when both of their names were on the ballot.
Exactly who is Connie Morris, and why is she causing so much controversy? Here's what's known about her. She moved to St. Francis, Kansas in 1992 and currently resides on a ranch owned by her husband's family. Before that, she taught in a classroom for 6 years in Colorado. She took a hiatus from teaching to write and promote her book, From the Darkness: One Woman's Rise to Nobility. She said she decided to run for Kansas State Board of Education in 2002 because God wanted her to.
I would like to know what Bible she's reading. We have in the state of Kansas a great educational system, and we should share that with all those that we can help in this state, not just because it's the right thing to do from a moral perspective, but also from a self-enlightened position. What is in our own self-interest as a state? Is it better to have people who are educated, who are able to enter a workforce with skills, who are able to become tax-paying residents at some point? Or should we create this class of uneducated individuals that are going to be in our state because the jobs are there for them to take, and not give back anything to our economy?
What Morris and her supporters fail to recognize is that communities can actually prosper because of cultural diversity. That people from all backgrounds can not only survive in America, they can thrive off each other. No place in Kansas better exemplifies that notion than Garden City, which has seen a tremendous increase in immigrants with the arrival of major meat packing plants in the early 1980s.
Garden City, Kansas. Garden City, Kansas. Garden City, Kansas. The wind whispers, just plain success, where you're greeted with a smile. Come and spend a little while.
When other rural-based communities have struggled, Garden City has flourished. By 1990, Finney County was the fastest-growing county in Kansas. We've also enjoyed a very interesting ethnic diversity. In particular, the Hispanic and Asian influence is vivid in Garden City, enhancing our local culture with everything from unique festivals to great food. Garden City is a regional trade center.
Yes, this is Garden City. But so is this.
Garden City has now become what we know as a majority-minority community. That is, so-called minorities, non-whites, are now the majority in Garden City. The ethnic balance has tipped in southwest Kansas. And we see a degree of white flight. We see, I think, increases in anti-immigrant sentiment and xenophobia. It is the America of the future. It is a multi-ethnic, multi-racial, multi-linguist multilingual community that is the kind of community that we'll see more and more and more of.
Garden City has a lot of caring people, and we open our arms to all walks of life, and we're a leader in Kansas of trying to make things better for not only kids but people coming into our community.
Within Garden City, perhaps no school has done a better job of including these kids without compromising the overall level of education than Victor Ornelas Elementary.
Yeah, but we're not going to write the meaning today. You're going to look up the word and write down the page number. Okay? I think you can do that. How do you look for a word in the dictionary?
This is a great representation of Garden City, and the fact that we have 4 languages spoken here. Everything that we send home in terms of notes home to parents goes home in English, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Laotian. And that's just, without a thought. I mean, that's just the people we need to communicate with. Parent-teacher conferences are very, very interesting because they come in and sit down and want to talk, and we have translators running all over the building. I mean, they just go like crazy. So with all the stuff now with No Child Left Behind and everything that you do has to be research-based, we're going to have to continue to do more documentation than probably we ever have in the history of education. And for having something like that that's handed down by the state, something in addition would just be overwhelming.
We asked Principal Hogan what he thought of Morris's plan to kick these kids out of school.
If something like that were to be passed, it would be moving back decades in terms of going back to like the segregation, where you'd be identifying students from what they are instead of based on their needs. And as an educator, that is totally against what we believe.
Does that look like P-A-C? P-A-C. Okay, look at here. R-V-R-O-C-K.
I love diversity. I love the challenges that it brings to our society and to our schools, and it makes me a richer individual to get to know these students and families from other countries. America has always been made up of families from other countries, always in our history. And so I don't think it's fair to isolate right now, this time in our history.
The educators at Victor Ornelas said they don't check the immigration status of their students, and they don't care to either. After all, they said, they're educators, not immigration cops.
Our kids are good friends with each other and have no clue who would be legal or illegal. They have no clue, and neither do I. I really don't, so.
When the teachers at Victor Ornelas learned of Morris's views, they extended an open invitation to her so she could see firsthand how they're able to educate every child. Even though the school is in the district that Morris represents, she refused to visit. That didn't keep at least one teacher from issuing another invitation.
Come and visit. Come and visit the schools. Come into the classroom and see if she can pick out any child that shouldn't be educated. If these children are not in school, they're going to be out on the streets. They'll be playing, they'll be in trouble, and no education. They're not going to get any better job than what their parents are working at here.
Isela Lerma of the Mexican-American Ministries in Garden City helps immigrants find the social services that they're entitled to. She knows of the challenges facing the immigrant population, whether they're here legally or illegally. When we caught up with her, she took time out from helping a local Boy Scout troop prepare for an enchilada sale. According to Isela, even if Morris were to successfully challenge the Supreme Court decision, it wouldn't make much of an impact on illegal immigration.
These people are not going anywhere. They're not going back. A lot of them have nothing to go back to. What they're escaping is far more horrible than the discrimination they get here, so they'll just take it. But it's sad.
One of the kids helping Isela that day also made a great point.
I think that would be kind of sad to be in that position of trying to tell a child he can't go to school.
It's unlikely Morris and her supporters will get the Supreme Court decision overturned.
Maybe it's made us all more aware of it. Maybe for that part it's even been good because other people are going to be concerned about these kids.
they are not likely to overturn the Supreme Court decision. I just hope that more people become aware of it and realize how awful this would be if we were deporting children. I mean, or turning children away from our schools. The school is their only hope. And that's our hope for the future, that all children be educated. If there needs to be a campaign waged against illegal aliens, okay, but we're going to leave children out of that issue.
The disdain that Morris and her ilk have for these immigrants borders on the absurd, because when you think about it, unless you're Native American, we're all immigrants to this country.
My ancestors who came here from Europe quite some time ago probably would have been here illegally had there been the same immigration laws in place.
Most all of us are migrants. Now, we may be 2 or 3 generations back, but nearly everyone in the United States is migrant. That's what's made this country so strong, is because we've been a melting pot for all peoples to come in and build this nation like what it is. And we're just going on with what our forefathers started here.
Life goes on in Garden City, as it does throughout the state. Even if you feel something has to be done about illegal immigrants, is this really the right way to address the problem? By punishing the kids for the supposed sins of their parents? The sin in question is seeking employment and a better life for themselves and their children. Some people would just call that chasing the American dream.
We're hoping that nobody will listen to her.